Hannah Whitmore never forgot the sound of her phone hitting the kitchen floor. It wasn't loud, but it was final, like a door closing somewhere she couldn't reach. She stood frozen in her apartment, still dressed in her work blazer, staring at the open bedroom doorway. Logan Pierce was there, her fiancé of 2 years, sitting on the edge of the bed, pulling on his shirt too quickly. Brianna Whitmore, her younger sister, was behind him, wrapped in Hannah's white duvet like it belonged to her. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Logan cleared his throat. "This isn't what it looks like," he said, his voice thin and unconvincing. Hannah laughed once, short and sharp. "You're in my bed," she replied. "With my sister." Brianna's eyes filled with tears immediately, perfectly timed. "Hannah, please don't do this," she whispered. "It just happened." That was when something inside Hannah went quiet. Not broken, quiet. She picked up her phone, walked out of the room, and locked herself in the bathroom. She didn't cry. She sat on the edge of the tub and listened to her own breathing until it slowed. 15 minutes later, she walked back out, calm enough to scare them. "You should leave," she told Logan. "Both of you." Brianna reached for her. "You're my sister." Hannah stepped back. "Not tonight." By the next morning, Logan was gone, his clothes missing from the closet, his toothbrush still in the sink like an insult. Brianna didn't call. Neither did their parents. And that silence, the way the world didn't rush to defend her, was when Hannah understood this wasn't just betrayal. It was displacement. Someone else had decided her life fit them better. Before I continue, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. Your one click really helps support the channel. The invitation arrived 3 months later, slipped between a credit card offer and a utility bill like it belonged there. Hannah recognized Brianna's handwriting immediately. Rounded letters. Confident strokes. She opened it standing over the trash can, already expecting cruelty, but still unprepared for how deliberate it was. Brianna and Logan were getting married. Same venue Hannah had booked. Same calligrapher. Same date she had chosen a year earlier. A smaller card fell out with a handwritten note. "Family should celebrate family. Come see what true love looks like." Hannah read it twice, then sat down at the kitchen table. She didn't scream. She didn't tear it up. She folded it carefully and placed it beside her coffee mug. When Samantha, her best friend, called that evening, Hannah answered on the second ring. "You're not going," Samantha said immediately. "Tell me you're not going." Hannah looked at the invitation again. "I am," she replied. "Absolutely not," Samantha shot back. "They want to humiliate you." Hannah smiled, faint and unreadable. "No," she said. "They want me absent." There was a pause. "That's worse," Samantha admitted. Hannah didn't explain. She couldn't, not yet. She only said, "I'll handle it." After the call, Hannah opened her closet and looked at the white dress hanging at the back. The one she'd bought for her own wedding. She ran her fingers over the fabric and closed the door again. That night, she slept deeply for the first time since the betrayal. Not because she'd moved on, but because she'd made a decision. Hannah's parents found out she was attending the wedding the following week. Janet Whitmore showed up unannounced, heels clicking across the apartment floor like punctuation marks. "This is unnecessary," she said, arms folded. "You're being dramatic." Hannah poured tea and slid a cup toward her mother without sitting down. "I was invited," she said evenly. Janet scoffed. "By your sister. Then take it up with her." Janet's voice softened, the way it always did when manipulation failed. "Your father is under a lot of stress, Hannah. The firm isn't doing well. Charles is counting on Logan's family connections." Hannah looked up sharply. "You're counting on my humiliation to secure a business deal." Janet's lips pressed together. "It's not about you." Hannah laughed quietly. "It never is." Later that evening, Charles called. His tone was clipped, authoritative. "I expect you to behave," he said. "This wedding matters." Hannah didn't raise her voice. "So did my engagement." Silence stretched. "You work too much," Charles said finally. "You drove him away." Hannah ended the call without replying. That night, she drove across town to meet Michael Stanton, the lawyer who had handled her grandmother Dorothy Whitmore's estate for decades. He waited until they were seated before speaking. "Your grandmother was very specific," he said, sliding a folder across the table. Hannah opened it slowly, her breath steady. As she read, Her understanding sharpened into something dangerous. So if Brianna marries Logan, she said carefully, she loses everything.
Michael nodded. And she has no idea.
The morning of the wedding, Hannah dressed alone.
No music. No phone.
Just the quiet precision of someone preparing for a long day.
She wore the white dress, not bridal, but unmistakable.
Structured.
Elegant. Unapologetic.
When she arrived at the cathedral, conversations stopped mid-sentence.
Heads turned. Whispers spread.
Is that Hannah? Why is she wearing white? She walked down the aisle with her chin high and her steps unhurried, ignoring the way Janet's face drained of color in the front pew.
Brianna stood at the altar, glowing, unaware. Logan saw Hannah first. His smile vanished. His hand tightened around Brianna's.
Reverend Paul Harris hesitated when Hannah took a seat near the back, but continued.
The ceremony unfolded like theater. Vows about honesty. Promises about trust.
Hannah listened, hands folded, heart steady. When the question came, if anyone objects, the air seemed to thin.
Brianna glanced back, smug. Hannah stood. Gasps rippled.
I object, she said clearly.
Reverend Harris blinked.
On what grounds?
Hannah stepped forward.
Legal grounds. Michael rose from his seat immediately.
I'm Michael Stanton, he announced.
Attorney for the Whitmore estate.
Brianna laughed nervously.
This is a joke.
Hannah met her sister's eyes.
You should have read Grandma's will more carefully.
The silence after that was absolute.
Reverend Harris accepted the documents with shaking hands as Michael spoke calmly, precisely, like a man reciting facts that could not be undone. Dorothy Whitmore placed the majority ownership of Whitmore and Company into a trust, he said. The inheritance is conditional.
Brianna's smile faltered.
Conditional on what?
Hannah answered her.
On character. Gasps erupted as Reverend Harris read aloud. Any heir marrying someone with significant debt or a history of fraud forfeited all claims. Logan swayed.
Brianna turned to him sharply. What debt? She hissed. Logan said nothing.
Hannah continued, her voice level.
200,000 in gambling debt. Credit cards in my name. A failed business he never disclosed. Brianna's bouquet slipped from her hands.
Janet stood, shouting Hannah's name, but no one listened. Michael finished. The estate, valued at $8 million, transfers to Hannah Whitmore effective immediately.
Brianna's knees buckled. You knew, she whispered to Logan. His silence was answer enough.
Reverend Harris closed the folder. The ceremony cannot continue.
Chaos erupted. Phones rose. Voices overlapped.
Hannah turned and walked down the aisle without rushing, without looking back. Outside, sunlight hit her face, warm and clean. Samantha was waiting near the steps, eyes wide.
Did that just happen? She asked. Hannah exhaled slowly.
It's just the beginning.
The reception hall emptied faster than it had filled.
Guests clustered in tight circles, whispering, recording, speculating. Hannah stood near the stone fountain outside the cathedral, the sound of running water steady against the chaos behind her. Michael joined her, loosening his tie. The board meeting is set for Monday morning, he said. They were prepared for resistance.
Hannah nodded.
There will be resistance.
Inside, Brianna's voice rose above the noise. You lied to me, she screamed.
Logan's reply was low, defensive. I didn't think it would matter. That sentence carried across the open doors like a confession.
Janet pushed through the crowd toward Hannah. How could you do this to your sister? She demanded, her eyes wild.
On her wedding day.
Hannah met her gaze calmly.
You should be asking her why she did it to me.
Janet shook her head.
This didn't have to be public.
Neither did the affair, Hannah replied.
Charles appeared behind Janet, his face gray. You've destroyed the company, he said hoarsely. Michael stepped in smoothly. Actually, Mr. Whitmore, your daughter just saved it.
Charles opened his mouth, then closed it.
Inside the hall, Logan's parents were demanding answers.
Debt, his mother repeated sharply.
What debt?
Logan finally snapped.
Enough. Brianna turned on him, tears streaking her makeup.
You said you were stable.
You said you were building something. I was, he insisted weakly. With you. Brianna laughed, high and broken. With my inheritance.
The realization hit her fully then.
She had chosen wrong, and she knew it. By Sunday morning,
The video was everywhere.
Hannah watched it once, then closed the app.
She didn't need to relive it. Samantha called anyway.
"You're trending," she said breathlessly. "People are calling you a legend." Hannah smiled faintly. "That'll fade." "Still," Samantha added, "you were ice cold. In the best way." Later that afternoon, Michael called. "Logan's being questioned," he said. "Fraud charges are likely."
Hannah exhaled. "Good." There was a pause.
"You okay?" "I am," she replied honestly. Across town, Brianna sat on the edge of her childhood bed, her wedding dress crumpled on the floor.
Janet hovered uselessly.
"He fooled us," Janet said weakly.
Brianna's laugh was hollow. "No.
I fooled myself." She stared at her phone. Brand deals withdrawn, comments vicious.
"I thought I won," she whispered. Janet said nothing.
Meanwhile, Charles sat alone in his office, staring at emails from board members who no longer answered his calls.
His phone buzzed.
A message from Michael. Access revoked effective immediately.
Charles slammed his desk.
At Hannah's apartment, there was a knock. She opened the door to find Logan standing there, eyes red, shoulders slumped. "I just want to explain," he said. Hannah didn't invite him in.
"You already did," she replied.
"At the altar."
He swallowed.
"I never meant to hurt you."
Hannah tilted her head.
"You just didn't care if you did." She closed the door gently but firmly, locking it with finality.
Monday morning arrived without ceremony.
Hannah entered the boardroom of Whitmore and Company in a tailored navy suit, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. Victoria Lang sat at the head of the table, hands folded. "Ms. Whitmore," she said, standing. "Thank you for coming."
The vote took less than 10 minutes. Unanimous. Victoria extended her hand.
"Welcome, CEO Whitmore." Hannah shook it, feeling the weight of the moment settle. Not triumph, but responsibility. "I won't waste this," she said simply. Later that day, Charles attempted to enter the building. Security stopped him.
"You can't be serious," he snapped.
The guard didn't waver. Upstairs, Hannah watched from her office window as her father argued, then left. Michael stood beside her. "He's being investigated," he said quietly. "Loans against assets he didn't own."
Hannah closed her eyes briefly. "I know." That evening, Brianna called. Hannah let it ring twice before answering.
"You planned this," Brianna said hoarsely. "You waited." "I waited," Hannah agreed. "I didn't force you." Silence stretched. "He never loved me," Brianna said finally. Hannah's voice softened, just slightly.
"No.
He loved what he thought you'd bring him."
Brianna laughed bitterly.
"So I lost everything."
"No," Hannah replied.
"You lost what wasn't yours." After the call ended, Hannah sat alone in her office, the city lights flickering below. For the first time in years, the future felt solid. The weeks that followed were relentless. New contracts, media inquiries, internal restructuring. Hannah worked long hours, but the exhaustion felt earned. One afternoon, Victoria stopped by her office. "You've stabilized the firm faster than expected," she said. "Your grandmother would be proud." Hannah looked at Dorothy's framed photo on the shelf. "She taught me patience," she replied. Across town, Brianna started over. No glamour. No shortcuts. She took a job at a coffee shop, learning how it felt to stand instead of being seated. One evening, she wrote Hannah a message but didn't send it. Not yet. Logan disappeared from the city entirely. His parents paid part of his restitution. The rest was his burden alone. Janet called Hannah repeatedly. Eventually, Hannah answered. "We miss you," Janet said quietly. Hannah leaned back in her chair. "You miss who I was," she corrected. "I don't live there anymore." Janet didn't argue. On a quiet Friday night, Hannah met Samantha for dinner. "You don't look angry," Samantha observed. Hannah smiled. "I'm not." "Forgiving?" "Not yet." She lifted her glass. "But free." The word settled between them, heavy and real. 6 weeks after the wedding that never was, Hannah received a letter. Handwritten. Brianna's name on the envelope. She opened it slowly. "I'm in therapy," Brianna wrote. "Not to get you back. To understand why I tried to take everything from you." Hannah folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Forgiveness could wait. Boundaries couldn't. That night, Hannah stood alone in her office, the city quiet below. She thought of Dorothy's voice, steady and sure. The quiet ones endure. Hannah turned off the lights and walked out, locking the door behind her. She wasn't finished. Not even close. The restructuring of Whitmore and Company exposed more than inefficiency. It exposed fear. Senior managers who had once deferred to Charles now avoided Hannah's office, unsure whether the new CEO would dismantle their comfort. Hannah didn't raise her voice or threaten jobs. She listened. In meetings, she asked simple questions that left no room for evasion. Why does this project cost more than it returns? Why are we maintaining contracts that drain resources? Silence often answered first, then truth. One afternoon, a longtime executive challenged her. "You're moving too fast," he said. Hannah met his eyes. "No. I'm correcting delays that were ignored for years." He nodded slowly. The room shifted. Leadership, she realized, wasn't dominance. It was clarity. Outside the office, the story refused to fade. Invitations to speak arrived. Panels. Interviews. Hannah declined most of them. She wasn't interested in being a symbol. She wanted results. When the first quarterly report showed a measurable turnaround, Victoria sent her a brief message. "This is how legacies are protected." Hannah saved it. That evening, she visited Dorothy's grave alone. No flowers. Just presents. "You were right," she said quietly. They revealed themselves. The wind moved through the trees, steady and calm. Hannah stood there longer than she planned, not mourning, but grounding herself. What she had now wasn't just control. It was alignment. Brianna's letter wasn't the last. Weeks later, another arrived, shorter, less polished. "I got my first paycheck today. It wasn't much, but it was mine." Hannah read it once, then set it aside. Change, if real, needed time. At home, Janet struggled with the shift in dynamics. She called less often. When she did, her voice lacked its usual authority. "Your father's taking consulting work," she said one evening. "Junior level." Hannah absorbed that quietly. "That's appropriate." Janet hesitated. "Do you hate us?" Hannah considered the question carefully. "No," she said. "But I won't carry what isn't mine anymore." The line went quiet. At work, Hannah hired deliberately, people who challenged her, people with substance. The firm began to feel different. Lighter. One night, as she prepared to leave, the security guard smiled. "Late again, Ms. Whitmore." "Worth it," Hannah replied. She walked out into the city, aware of how much had changed, and how much hadn't. Healing wasn't dramatic. It was repetitive in a different way. Small choices. Consistent boundaries. And the refusal to return to old roles simply because they were familiar. Logan surfaced once more, not in person, but through a legal notice. A request to settle outstanding claims quietly. Hannah forwarded it to Michael without comment. His reply came quickly. "We proceed formally." There was relief in letting professionals handle what no longer deserved her energy. Weeks later, the matter closed. Logan faded from relevance, which felt more final than any confrontation. At a charity event hosted by the firm, Hannah met Daniel Reeves, a civil engineer with a thoughtful demeanor and no curiosity about her past. They spoke about infrastructure, not history. When he asked her to dinner days later, she said yes without overthinking it. On the third date, he asked gently, "Do you ever regret how things ended?" Hannah paused. "No," she said. "I regret how long I accepted them." He nodded, understanding without probing. That was new. Comfort without erosion. Across town, Brianna stood behind a counter, wiping it down for the third time that hour. A customer complained. Brianna apologized and corrected it without drama. That moment, small, unnoticed, mattered more than she realized. She was learning something no one had taught her before: resilience without applause. The board approved Hannah's expansion proposal unanimously. New offices. New partnerships. Whitmore and Company began attracting talent it had never been able to hold before. During one meeting, Victoria leaned back and studied Hannah carefully. "You don't lead like your grandmother," she said. Hannah smiled. "I know." "You lead like yourself," Victoria replied. At home, Hannah finally unpacked the last box from her old apartment. Inside was the engagement ring Logan had never taken. She stared at it for a long moment, then placed it in a drawer and closed it. Not anger. Not sentiment. Closure. That same week,
Brianna sent one final message. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know I see it now. Hannah didn't respond.
Some acknowledgements didn't require replies.
They required distance.
On a quiet Sunday morning, Hannah and Daniel walked through a park, coffee in hand.
You're very steady, he said. Hannah considered that. I wasn't always.
People grow, he replied simply.
She believed him.
6 months after the interrupted wedding, Hannah stood in her office as the annual report was finalized. Revenue was up.
Debt eliminated.
The firm was stable, stronger than it had ever been. She signed the last page and handed it to Victoria.
This is yours now, Victoria said. Hannah shook her head.
It's ours. That evening, Hannah returned home, kicked off her shoes, and stood by the window watching the city breathe.
Her phone buzzed once.
A message from Samantha. Still proud of you.
Hannah smiled.
She thought of Dorothy again, not as a strategist, but as a woman who had understood patience better than anyone. The betrayal that once defined her life now felt distant, like a storm that had passed through and cleared the air. Hannah didn't feel victorious.
She felt settled.
And for the first time, that was enough. The first consequence arrived without spectacle. Hannah was reviewing a construction bid when Victoria stepped into her office and closed the door behind her. Regulators flagged irregular loans tied to legacy accounts, she said evenly. Your father authorized them.
Hannah absorbed that in silence.
What happens next?
An audit, Victoria replied.
And interviews.
That evening, Charles called.
His voice was restrained, careful. They're asking about transactions I approved years ago, he said. I need you to confirm they were operational expenses.
Hannah leaned against the counter, looking out at the city lights. They weren't, she answered.
A pause followed, heavier than anger. You're really not going to help, Charles said.
I'm not interfering, Hannah replied.
There's a difference. He exhaled sharply and ended the call. Janet rang later, her tone unsteady.
This is getting serious, she said. Hannah closed her eyes briefly.
It always was.
Janet didn't argue.
That night, Hannah told Daniel everything, without defensiveness, without apology. He listened, then said quietly, You didn't create these outcomes.
Hannah nodded.
I stopped preventing them. Brianna's consequences were less dramatic, but heavier.
Customers didn't recognize her. Coworkers didn't care who she used to be.
One afternoon, her manager corrected her sharply in front of others.
Brianna flushed but nodded.
Understood. After her shift, she sat alone in her car, gripping the steering wheel.
No camera. No audience. Just herself. She called Hannah and hung up twice before finally letting it ring. Hannah answered.
I'm not calling for help, Brianna said quickly.
Good, Hannah replied.
Then talk.
Brianna swallowed. I thought winning meant being chosen.
I didn't know how empty that was until now.
Hannah didn't rush to comfort her. What do you want? She asked.
To stop being that person, Brianna said.
Silence stretched.
That's your work, Hannah said finally.
Not mine.
Brianna nodded even though Hannah couldn't see her.
I know. It wasn't reconciliation. It was something more honest.
The press moved on, but business didn't forget. A rival firm quietly folded after losing key clients to Whitmore and Company. At a networking dinner, an executive leaned toward Hannah. You don't protect incompetence, he said. That matters.
Hannah smiled politely.
Later, Victoria pulled her aside.
People trust you, she said.
Not because you're ruthless. Because you're fair.
At home, Janet struggled with the fallout. She sold jewelry.
Cancelled memberships. One afternoon, she showed up at Hannah's door unannounced, eyes tired. I don't know who I am without managing appearances, she admitted.
Hannah handed her a glass of water.
Now you get to find out.
Janet nodded slowly.
You're different.
I had to be, Hannah replied.
Janet left without asking for forgiveness.
That felt like progress.
Logan's sentencing came quietly. Probation. Restitution.
Public records. Hannah didn't attend. Michael summarized it in one sentence.
He'll be paying for his choices for years.
Good, Hannah said. That night, Daniel cooked dinner at her place. Burned the garlic. Apologized excessively.
Hannah laughed, surprising herself. You don't have to perform, she said.
He looked at her carefully.
Neither do you.
The words stayed with her. For the first time, She considered a future not defined by repair.
Not defined by proving anything.
Just building. A year after the wedding that wasn't, Hannah stood before the board again.
Victoria gestured toward the numbers projected on the screen.
Record growth, she said.
Sustained. Applause followed, restrained but real. After the meeting, Victoria lingered. Your grandmother planned for survival, she said. You planned for evolution.
Hannah smiled.
That evening, Hannah visited Dorothy's grave once more. It worked, she said softly. But it cost exactly what it needed to. She walked back to her car, phone buzzing with a message from Brianna. I got promoted to shift lead. Hannah paused, then typed back a single word.
Earned.
She drove home feeling something unfamiliar but welcome, peace that didn't require vigilance.
Logan Pierce's downfall was not dramatic.
It was slow, public, and permanent. After sentencing, he tried to rebuild quietly, but his name carried weight in the wrong direction. Financial institutions declined him.
Employers hesitated.
The charm that once opened doors now raised suspicion. He moved back in with his parents, took contract work far below his former status, and learned what it meant to live without shortcuts. When a reporter tracked him down months later, asking if he regretted his choices, Logan answered honestly for the first time. I regret thinking I was smarter than consequences.
The quote ran once. Then no one asked again. Brianna never defended him publicly. She didn't attack him either. She simply removed herself from his orbit entirely. They spoke once after everything settled. You didn't love me, she said plainly. Logan didn't argue.
I loved what I thought you'd give me.
Brianna nodded, stood up, and left the cafe without drama. That was the last time they saw each other. No closure speech.
No reconciliation. Just separation. Logan faded into obscurity, where people eventually land when they mistake access for worth. Brianna's future unfolded differently.
Slower. Harder. Real.
She stayed at the coffee shop for nearly a year, took business classes at night, and paid for them herself. For the first time, no one cleared a path ahead of her. When she struggled, there was no one to rescue her. When she succeeded, no one clapped. That changed her. Not immediately, but steadily. One afternoon, she ran into Hannah by chance outside a bookstore. They stood awkwardly for a moment. I'm not asking for anything, Brianna said quickly. Hannah studied her sister, tired, thinner, but grounded.
Good, Hannah replied. Brianna nodded.
I wanted you to know. I finally understand what I took from you.
Hannah didn't soften.
Understanding doesn't undo harm, she said.
Brianna accepted that without argument. I know, she replied. But it's where I start. They parted without hugging. Without promises. It wasn't forgiveness.
It was accountability, and that mattered more. Years later, when people told the story, they focused on the wedding interruption, the inheritance, the spectacle.
Hannah never corrected them. The truth was quieter.
The real ending wasn't the money or the downfall.
It was the shift.
The moment Hannah stopped absorbing damage to keep others comfortable. Whitmore and company thrived under her leadership, not because she was ruthless, but because she was clear. Her family learned, slowly, that love without responsibility is hollow. Brianna rebuilt a life that no longer depended on comparison.
Logan lived with the limits of his own decisions. And Hannah? Hannah lived without apology.
She took the day off, walked through the city, and felt no bitterness, only distance.
The past no longer followed her. It stayed where it belonged. Behind her.
Some victories don't make noise. They simply put everything back where it belongs. If this story resonated with you, like and subscribe for more stories of quiet strength and earned justice. And tell me, what boundary are you ready to set?